Hey, Mike, how are you?
I'm swell. How you doing, Bob? On this fine, lovely evening, at least up here.
It is a lovely evening. Welcome everybody to the Pop Culture SquadCast Live. It is Tuesday night. It is October 26th, I think. Or no, it's August 26th. Not October yet. It feels that way. And that's what I was gonna say, because your point about the weather is that it's downright autumnal even around here. It's like, I mean, it's 80, but it doesn't feel that. It's nice little breeze down here.
Here too. Here too. Tomorrow
I'm
we're
loving it.
going to have hot hail.
Hell, well, based on where we're going, it sounds about that right. And then we're gonna go right into that. We're gonna talk about the hellstorm of that we are living in. Uh, if you are a fan of Pop Culture Squad, you should be going to the popculturesquad.com website, and on there you will find an article written by my fine co-host here that about, and I titled this. You have a different title, but the article essentially is on crackers, barrels, and dimwits, and that's pretty much it. Um, it is uh, it is ridiculous. Uh, the news just broke, within the last hour, and so breaking news. But there was a bit of a hubbub over the weekend or late last week about the fact that everybody's favorite, or not, or everybody's least favorite, I don't know, some restaurant called Cracker Barrel I've seen and eaten at and prefer not to, regardless of their banner. They changed their logo. They basically streamlined it, made it more functional in terms of moving things around. It was much more generic, but also works well with um, ease of transition. Right? It's easier to reproduce. It's simpler size. It works well. Right? Um, People got upset.
I'm not sure people is the right word.
There was an uproar regarding regarding the fact that the Cracker Barrel logo removed the cracker. So there was no Uncle Jethro or Heathcliff or whatever the heck his name is. Uh, Herschel, Uncle Herschel, or something like that. I think that's his name. There's a kindly old gentleman with his arm on a barrel or something like that. And so the uproar is that it was too woke because we were removing the old white guy.
He
Not
wasn't white, he was yellow.
Listen, as I said, they removed the cracker from Cracker Barrel, and then people got upset, and now because certain orange people got upset about the yellow people being missing, uh, they have they have now reversed course, and they're keeping Uncle Herschel or whatever his name is. I would like your opinion on this dramatic turn of events.
Well, 15 or 20 minutes ago, I updated our site and added a paragraph at the end, and a little update on the headline. The headline is Satan's Donuts, which is just one of my favorite headlines of all time.
Sure, sure.
So read it to find out why I call it Satan's Donuts. Um, and read it because I got real pissy on the update. I got real pissy on the update. It's not like I like the restaurant. I'd been there once and I thought the meal I had was pretty good. And I really liked the chocolate licorice that they sold there. Um, and people do this sort of thing. They reposition themselves, they do new logos, they do new design work all the time. The reason for doing so is not because you're woke, and there's nothing woke about what they did, nothing whatsoever, unless you're really pissed off at line art people who don't look like necessarily white people, but whiter than most people who aren't white, I guess. I don't know. I don't know what MAGA is about. I'm sorry, I'm losing it. I'm just losing it. This is so fucking stupid. So fucking stupid. God bless them. Hope they enjoy it.
Well, so we started there.
I'm sorry. Did I make any sense at all? I got very
Sure, absolutely. Listen, I think there are 3 words that you encapsulate exactly what you said, and I'm going to repeat them. So fucking stupid. There you go.
Yeah, that's it.
All right, so let's move on to one of our favorite topics.
Uh-oh.
Diamond issues.
Oh boy. Yeah.
There's more diamond issues. I wanted to we talked about this a couple of weeks ago. In the concept of diamond the comic distributors, the new owners, wanting to sell the inventory that they have on consignment and keeping the money and then using it to pay off their loan to JP Morgan Chase. That is the reason. I hadn't had that piece of information earlier, so I was uninformed. But their concept is that they have this loan that they took out in January to keep things afloat, and then everything went to hell. And they need to pay this loan, and they figure that if they can sell this consignment stuff, then they can get like free money and pay back the loan, which is stealing. But the court has issued a stay on the sale of the disposition of consigned inventory. So they are not allowed to sell it at this point. And there's continuing motions that are going on. There's a hearing in September to talk about what to do going forward, but that is still not happening.
It's amazing to me that a company would come in and buy another company, even if it's cheap, and that company is on the ropes. I mean, that's how business works in America, without doing their homework. And it's not just, okay, the due diligence about whatever it is you're buying and see if it's encumbered in any way. And yes, this stuff is heavily encumbered. It's the diligence of checking to see whether you have any legal right whatsoever to sell things on consignment and keep the money. That's what consignment means. We give this to you, you give us back most of what you get for it, and everybody's happy. I love the idea, and this is very sarcastic of me, go figure, that some publishers are getting ripped off, but most, I really hate that idea. There are one or two that were kind of slimy. And the history of cockroach capitalist publishing is that ultimately publishers go out of business and wind up owing people a lot of money. And Diamond was also a publisher, so I guess that they count. But I mean, this is just a nightmare, and you and I both, and many people who are watching and or listening to us right now, have friends or acquaintances somewhere throughout the greater Diamond Empire over the years. Bob, you're in Baltimore, which is ground zero for them, and bad choice of words. And I feel for them. I feel for all of them, from Steve Jeppe on. And Steve was the guy who created the place thousands of years ago. It's a tragedy. I hope publishers can adjust, but I'm much more concerned about the retailers, about the comic book stores being able to adjust to an ever-changing climate. When prices are going up, comic book prices are about to skyrocket with the tariffs, and nobody knows what to do. Do they have enough money left over from paying double for their groceries this week than they did last month? Maybe not.
I mean, yeah, we're in an economy that's constantly difficult. And this is just, part of the business that we're in. We do want to, we're going to continue to talk about the things that happen as they happen. Right now, this is good for the publishers. I mean, the thing about it is, the publishers that are in real trouble here are small publishers, people who are
Yes.
publishing. They're self-publishing essentially. They don't have a whole lot of inventory. They don't have a warehouse. So this was an agreement that they had, and now the new owners are like, what agreement? So we'll continue to support this. We'll continue to talk about it, keep everybody informed. This is the latest. More bad news, one more bad news, and we'll talk about something fun, and then we'll get to our guests, because we do have some great guests coming in tonight. We're going to talk to some fantastic comic book creators and artists, and it's going to be a great conversation.
Who get to follow all of this?
Well, no, we're got one more bad thing.
Okay,
and it's not bad. It's a sign of the times, and this is the world we live in, right? So there was there's a bit of a silver lining in this. Yesterday, I believe it was yesterday, a lot of comic book creators woke up to an email from Image Comics Accounting, which was not that. It was a very blatant phishing expedition with the PH phishing, and so someone their accountant, someone in their accounting department's email was hacked, and an email came out that says, here, I need you to review for security reasons and send them back to using Microsoft Excel, and here, click on this document. Now, that's shitty. It is shitty to try and trick people and steal their information and do things. That's terrible. What is good in certain ways is that, number one, we are, as a group, getting smarter to not click on things that you shouldn't click on, and two, have ways to notify everybody quickly. So that the news went out quickly on Blue Sky and Twitter and whatever social medias that people had, saying, hey, I got this email, it looks shitty. If you get it, then don't click on it. And it came out, and then there was confirmation later on that from Image that it was a hacked email and that it happened. So I mean, that happened yesterday. So the bad news is people are out there trying to take advantage of comic book creators, which sucks. The good news is, I think I'm not aware of anybody who actually kind of clicked on it. I think everybody was good enough to, or smart enough to, or fortunate enough to not fall prey to that.
Well, we talked about this very briefly before the show, and I pointed out that it only takes a minute fraction, and I mean a percentage of 1%, a small percentage of 1%, to make this an extremely viable means of stealing money from people, stealing things from people. So I'm always concerned about any of these cheesy hustles. It is the downside to the internet, although there are others. And it makes me regret ever having been involved with the creation of, as part of, a small part of the creation of this medium that we have now, that has replaced everything else, and not always for the better.
Sure. Absolutely. Let's talk about some interesting news. This is film and TV news. Film and TV news, we have some. There's plenty. We can talk about a lot of things, but one of the things that kind of following up from last week, we talked about the change that Archie's making to their publishing plans. And then on the weekend, we found out that Universal Pictures is developing a live action film based on Archie. It is going to be produced, and I don't know, or directed by Phil Lord and Christopher Miller, the people who are behind Into the Spider-Verse, and the screenplay will be written by Tom King. I'm okay with this. I think this is...
Well, I like Tom's work enormously, as we've said many times on this show, including to him. And I like the exactly one archery story he's written. I thought it was really good, actually. I'm a little concerned that people will just think this is a movie made out of the TV show, out of a recent TV show.
I understand your concern.
It's a concern.
Don't think that he's ever watched the TV show.
Doesn't matter. It's the people who are paying for the tickets. Those are the people who have to understand the difference. But even that's not a big trauma. The movie, once it opens, will if it opens, will speak for itself. I say if only because not all movies that are started are finished, let alone released. This could be a great thing. I want to see how Archie sort of maneuvers its own publishing plans around this. But, you know, it comes down to the casting like any other movie, every other movie. And if they can cast a couple of great hunks and a couple of terrific babes, they've got it.
That sounds good. All right. We've been fooling around with some stuff here. We've talked about good news a little bit, mostly bad news, but you know, sometimes it's like that. Next week maybe we'll have more good news than bad news. But in the meantime, we're going to bring in a guest.
I asked if I could plug a book.
Oh, you did. You have something to talk about. Let's do it.
Yes, it was. This is the second one of these little DC books that I'm plugging in as many weeks. This comes out tomorrow. This is their Plastic Man reprint. It covers just about every Jack Cole story, which is every Plastic Man story done in the first 3 years. Jack Cole was one of the great geniuses of comics, and by far Plastic Man was his greatest creation, and there isn't a bad story in this book. Plastic Man is still around. He's some sort of part of the Justice League or gang or Rude. I don't know what they're calling them this week, but damn, this is a great book. I think it costs like $30-$40, something like that. That's cheap for what you're getting. It's 400 pages or 350 pages, so you're going to have a swell time. I highly encourage anybody and everybody to read it, and maybe someday I'll tell you the story about the collector who got Jack Cole's suicide note from Hugh Hefner.
I've heard that story. I don't think we've told it on air, though.
I don't think we have. We'll get around.
We're gonna have to get to that one. That's a good story.
Yeah.
Is there any? What else do you? Is there something else you had, or was that the
I had one small piece of bragging to do.
Yes.
Not like I don't do any of that. But coincidentally, I got a note from DC today, from their collected editions editor, asking me to if I would be interested in writing the foreword to their Legends omnibus. As those of you may know, Legends was my first project when I returned to DC in the 1980s and in the mid 80s, and there's a good story behind all of that, which I will be writing for DC. So you can, I don't know, these omnibuses cost about $100. So if you really want to hear it, there you go. If not, go to London.
So that's great. That's good news. I like that. I like to hear that.
That's fun. And the funniest part is John Ostrander and I were just talking about John and I have to talk about talking. We have to set up a time and all this other stuff. And we just went through all that yesterday.
So now you know when you're going to talk?
I'll let you know after.
Okay, well, we need to talk about that.
Yeah,
we
I
need to
understand.
talk about you talking about talking.
I'm informing you now.
Okay. All right. That's good news. That's good news. We like to hear that. I bought Legends off the rack as it came out and loved it and enjoyed it and was excited about what it brought forward. So that's good news. I'm glad to hear that. And so the Plastic Man book that you were mentioning that comes out tomorrow, it's just Jack Cole stuff. It's all before the 70s.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. This is the first, maybe 1/3 of Plastic Man's original quality comics run in the 1940s.
Okay, great.
It is. It is.
Yeah,
if I had to make a list of the pinnacle of American comics, Jack Cole's Plastic Man would be very, very high on that list.
Okay, great. We have a guest in the green room. We're going to bring him in. I've wanted to have him on the show for a long time, and the reason he hasn't is mostly my fault. Like 98 or 9%, 99% my fault. We've talked about it, and then I would walk away and I'd forget, and I'd say let's do this, and then we'd talk about it, and then I'd get busy on something else and I'd forget. And I saw him up at Terrificon a couple weeks ago, and I said we have to do this, and so finally we're going to be able to bring in one of my favorite artists of the last 30 years or so, and somebody who's been part of comics and done so many different things. I want everybody to welcome in Mark Morales to the show. Oh, you're muted. Hang on. There you go. Hey, how are you?
Doing good. How are you? Can you hear me?
We can. Glad.
Thanks for being here, Mark.
Thank you. Yeah, I just came in listening to Jack Cole, Hugh Hefner, and Suicide Story. So
yeah. Well, I'll get you. Are you coming to Baltimore? Because I'll get you a story there. Because
I will be there. I want to hear it.
I will happily ask it on one of the panels I'm doing, so I can tell everybody.
All right. Sounds like a good one.
Thanks for being here. Your career has spanned the last few decades.
Yeah, I'm getting old.
You've been doing. Did I get the first work in that montage?
Pretty close. I guess the first thing I'd be known for was the Evil Ernie stuff, but I've done some smaller stuff and assisted some other inkers a bit here and there.
Yeah, probably uncredited stuff.
Yeah, and I did a job for my first paid job, I guess, was for Will Eisner back at School of Visual Arts. So
really, that's a great first paid job.
Yeah, he was a teacher at School of Visual Arts. I had him and Harvey Kurtzman, Joe Orlando, and Carmine Infantino, and I'm missing somebody, Gene Colan. And Will lived in Florida, and he would come up to New York every 2 weeks to teach the class. And I guess in this area of Florida, they had a lot of floods and hurricanes and such, and some of his stuff that was in storage got damaged. And at that point, they were reprinting a lot of the Spirit stories in Europe, and he had like an 8-pager that had gotten damaged, the originals. So he had like a class contest to see who wanted to try and ink it, since he didn't want to do it. And I won the contest, I guess, and it paid nothing, but the work for Will Eisner is pretty good.
That's pretty
Look,
cool. That's very
I-
cool.
Yeah, I have like a letter with like his letterhead and everything recommending me or whatever. So somewhere packed away in here.
a lot of great people, and you know this, got their start with Will.
Mm-hmm.
From Jules Pfeiffer and Joe Kubert. I mean, we're talking back to before World War II.
Yep.
Just right around the time the Nazi Party started, and this was not a response to that until they got to Black Hawk. But you're in good company.
Yeah.
If Will
Can't complain.
if Will thought you should do that, that would be good enough for me. I'd look at your portfolio any day of the week after that.
Well, it actually ended up being a problem because I knew I was good, but then it was like when I wasn't getting work, I was like, "Hey, I work for this guy. I should be getting work." But whatever.
So one of the questions I had then for you is how did you know that art was your calling? How did you know? I mean, you went to the School of Visual Arts,
Mm-hmm.
and you got work young. But how did you know that you needed to be an artist, or that you weren't? I don't think you needed to. I think you are an artist internally. But how did you know?
So I'm like the last of 3 kids. The brother and sister are much older, like 13 and 12 years older. So basically, when I was growing up, they were pretty much out of the house already. And it was the 70s. They didn't have the internet. They didn't have video games like that or anything like that. So it was pretty much comics and watching cartoons and stuff and just starting to draw from there. And I stuck with it for a while, got pretty good at it, I guess. But then like in high school, for whatever reason, I stopped doing it, like between my sophomore and junior year. And it really wasn't a time when like comic books were as popular as they are now. There were probably like 2 kids in my school that read them. And that was like a secret society type of thing.
But at that point in your life, girls were as popular as they are now.
Yes,
Yeah.
absolutely. In sports for me. So,
That's never changed.
so we weren't trying to make comic books a thing. It's the early 80s. But you get to the junior year and you start to decide what you're gonna do, what college you're gonna apply to or whatever. And my only other thought was maybe going into like psychology or something. And then I realized that was be like 8 years of school that I didn't want to deal with. So got a portfolio together, went applied everywhere and got into School of Visual Arts and made a go of it.
And it worked.
Yeah. Knock on wood. Yeah.
So the beginnings of your career are, you got some assisting inking and stuff. And I want to have you on because I really want to talk about the art of inking in that you've made a career as an inker. How do you describe that to somebody who doesn't know it?
It's one of the worst things to describe because every job is so different. That
great.
There's a famous Chasing Amy thing where you're just a tracer.
Right.
And some jobs honestly are that. Some jobs really are just translating what the guy drew into ink. Other jobs are basically I'm drawing the whole thing. I get like a stick figure and I have to make it look like something. So the only analogy I could even sort of come with over the years that sort of works is like you're like the lighting and cinematographer for a comic book. You have to bring everything to life, make it work, make it have some depth to field, and make it clear and legible and readable, And then, but like I said, every job is such a different animal,
Some of our best comics artists and storytellers were great inkers. Doesn't mean they weren't doing other things as well. But you can get into a great fight with people about who Jack Kirby's best inker was.
Absolutely.
Until some jerk walks into the room like me and says, Wally Wood.
You're right.
You are
right. I have over here the Skymaster's book. You're correct.
That's it. No, that's it. That's magic, isn't it? One page after another of
But Wally was the best, just about. He's on my Mount Rushmore comic book artist anyway, so.
You got it. You absolutely got it.
Wally Wood, Mike Royer, Joe Sinnott, and then maybe Frank Giacoya, maybe.
Is that are these Jack inkers? Is that?
Yeah, I think those are the guys actually.
Ditko did a nice job here and there.
They're not enough. You got to give me more.
Yeah.
I get a one shot type of thing. Got to give me more.
I get that, but people just don't think of of Jack and Steve as a team.
Yeah.
And actually, I think of them as Marvel Comics. So,
Right.
yeah.
Well, I just recently got the big that Taschen Productions is doing those big oversized collections of the early Marvel books. They sent me one of the Hulk, and there's a couple of stories in there that Kirby was inked by Ditko that look great.
Yes. Yes. And you wouldn't think so necessarily. I was buying that stuff off the racks as like a 12-year-old. And it didn't bother me.
Yeah.
So can you define how today the work that you get, how often are you finishing? Like it's always found it interesting. Like there's the, are you inking? Are you finishing? Are you embellishing?
Yeah.
Right. And I have had conversations with other inkers who are very particular about what to be called on a particular thing. Do you get upset about being called a certain thing or another?
I don't get upset about anything. Just give me the check. I'm good.
That's
I'm an easy guy.
That's what I expect.
I mean,
but
the inking career, basically, there's not that many inkers left, so that I'm working still, I'll take it, whatever it is.
That's something we can get into if you want to, but we'll get to that. My question though is there, how do you prefer to work? And actually, no, this is the question. Do you get scripts when you're working? You get the script.
I requested, yes, because you want to, when you're doing a monthly book, it's tough. You got to get a page done a day, basically, if not more. And some pages are going to be duds, and some pages are where everybody's putting the emphasis on, like the splash pages or like the high point of the drama of the story. So if given the opportunity, having the script so I know where that's coming along the assembly line, it helps that, you're going to have to really put your A game on this page, or accentuate something to make it really pop, or play around with the line weights to make something subtly more in your face than, not, like a lot of teams books I work on. And if you look at them, I tend to put a bolder outline on the heroes so they stand out more than stuff that's in the background, because those are the ones you're getting the emphasis for. That's what you're here for,
That's right. And the heroes are usually a little bit bigger than everybody else. So
I'll put a really good job on the Superman, but the guy in the background wearing the sweatshirt, not quite as much.
Screw him.
He pops.
He should move. The guy in the background should just move over.
Sure, it's part of the background at this point.
There are some inkers who would just erase them. So
there are some.
Yeah, I knew one of those.
Yes.
We're not going to talk about that. So let's.
I'd love to.
He did an interesting job on Thor with Kirby, though. I mean, it made it look like an old woodcut. It's kind of a weird feeling.
Let's get back to Jack Kirby and Steve Ditko for just 1 second.
Mm-hmm.
When Steve was visiting DC right before Kirby went over from Marvel, somebody, I believe it was Ross Andrew, I wasn't there back then, said, "Wow, who's Steve asked Ross, who's going to ink him?" And Ross says, Vinnie Coletta. And Steve made a face and just went, ah.
Mark just made the same face.
I would.
There you go. There you go.
He did great romance comic stuff, but he
did great work. Well, mostly great work on Thor.
Yeah.
Okay, here's where I drop names. In August of 1976, Neil Adams and Jeanette Kahn drove me from Long Island to New Jersey to a party at Vinnie Coletta's mansion, which was based upon the Godfather mansion. And it really did look like that. And it was just tacky as all hell. But we all went there, and this meant a lot to Neil, because for 2 years, Coletta would take everything he was given and ink it overnight.
Mm-hmm.
Just boom, erase.
That's how you afford a mansion, obviously.
That's how you afford in 2 years. In 2 years,
Ponies had something to do with it too.
And well, that gives me another story. But yes, and on the drive back, Neil was just shaking his head, and I think I thought I knew why he was shaking his head, so I called him on it. He says, "Yeah, I can't believe they did so much horrible artwork to buy such a horrible house."
Horrible being the operative word, I guess.
Oh yeah,
Right. So,
yeah.
While we leave Vinny alone. He's an easy
But it's so
target.
fun.
He's an easy target.
The million stories.
I can do 2 hours on Vinny.
Well, listen. Here's the thing. When you, I'm a huge fan of your work, and it is. I love the fact that when I look at your work, I can see there's a bit of it that I can always see that it's you, but you have worked with so many different pencilers and layouts where they have, it really pushes you to different things. Like, for example, Ed McGuinness is somebody you've collaborated with a lot, and his style is very different than a lot of the other people that you've how do you approach the collaborators that you have, the pencilers that you have? Do you establish a conversation? Do you want to establish a conversation about how they want things to do? Do you then say, okay, I've figured out how to ink Adriana, or I've figured out how to ink Althea or Aletha, or Ed? How does that work for you?
Well, usually if it's someone I've never worked with before, I'll try and find a couple of books that they've done in the past with other people just to see what I think works or doesn't work. And then I always try and contact them, either email or give them a call, just to see what they're feeling, what they're looking for. And it takes a couple of pages. It takes usually like sometimes half a book, really, to figure out the right approach to it. So then I'll send it to them, and then we'll go over it back and forth to see what they think works or what doesn't work, and try to apply that from that point on. But at the end of the day, you do what you do. It works with some. I've worked well with some pencilers, and some other ones just doesn't mesh. It's oil and water. So you just hope for the best. Luckily, I've been working with some of the best people over the last 25 years. So I've been lucky to get a lot of people that are just that good. That really I can't screw it up.
But even if you're working with the best, the absolute best of the best, doesn't mean that your work and their work are going to be compatible.
Correct.
So the thinking when you're looking at that page of pencils for the first time can be quite befuddling.
Yep, absolutely. I mean, there's been guys that I've worked with. There's this great artist, Greg Tocini. He does a lot of stuff for Image, and he's a Brazilian artist. He does a lot of stuff for Image. He's done some stuff for Marvel. He did like the Marvel 1602 book.
Mm-hmm.
And
right,
great artist, but I couldn't really make heads or tails of it because a lot of it's just drawn with the side of the pencil, and there's a lot of tonal stuff, and I really couldn't figure out how to make it work. So I pretty much left after an issue because it just wasn't meshing. It's like, why bang your head against the wall? It's not going to come out as good as when, I think he ended up doing most of it himself, and it looked amazing. So, sometimes you just got to pull out a bit.
On a few rare occasions, I had seen Alex Nino's pencils.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, he would be impossible to ink. Impossible.
And I totally understood from the first glance why Alex Nino almost always inked his own stuff.
Yeah.
Because you give it to a person who needs to make a deadline in order to get a check, in order to pay the rent and put food on the table, and they're going to say, life is not long enough.
Right. And it's also it depends on the temperament of the penciler sometimes too, because to my mind, some of the best work in comics is when it's been a collaboration where both artists come into the penciler and the inker, and like almost like a third artist comes out of it, something that's better than the sum of the other two. And like Frank Miller and Klaus Janson on Daredevil, You know,
Agreed.
that's like the best that both of them have ever looked together, and it came out with like a third better artist. With somebody like that, it's like with Nino, like I'm saying, if he's up for letting the inker do whatever he wants to and figuring it out and knowing that it's going to come out looking like not like his stuff particularly, but maybe something different and good, that's cool. But a lot of pencils don't want to do that. They want it to look like you know. So
Right. I should point out that Alex's work befuddled colorists as well. So he usually colored his own stuff.
yeah, he's a one-man band. You got to do it yourself, I guess. You know.
Absolutely.
And there are a few artists like that it's better they do everything themselves, I think, you know.
Well, I think that's true. And if they can figure out a way to do that and pay the rent,
yeah,
more power.
There's the problem.
More
those
power
guys are not the
them.
fastest guys.
No. I was very close friends with Marshall Rogers for years and years and years. And one day his girlfriend, the woman with whom he lived, came to me and said, "How does he pay the rent?" And well, you live with him.
There's a couple of guys. There's a couple of guys that I know have a meth lab somewhere because they can't be making money drawing comics. It's impossible.
No,
it's impossible. There's no.
And they love it as much as the rest of us. Yeah. So it's frustrating.
You mean the meth or the?
Okay. We kind of talking about this, and I want to dig into it just a little bit. You know, like I said, you've had some long-term collaborations. Are there collaborations that stand out to you as special? Some things that you jump at?
I mean, sure. I mean, I've worked with Jimmy Chung over.
I was hoping that was
the last
because I really love your
years,
work.
I guess. Yeah, he was. I got on X-Force with an old friend of mine, Adam Polino, like number 49 or number 50. And I stayed on it till number 100. There was a couple of gaps, but I stayed on it till number 100. Adam left somewhere around number 75, and Jimmy Chung came on, and he got better literally every issue. It was like when he first started, it's like, I don't know. But every issue, he just got better and better and better to the point where he's probably one of the top 5-10 guys of the last 20 years, I think. He's amazing. Sure. Worked with Steve McNiven. He's great. Olivier Coipel, I think, may well be the best comic book artist out there right now when he does anything. Because, again, he's one of those guys that, what's your second job? Exactly.
He's got the originals, and that's the issue. See, that's...
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Frank Quietly I've worked with, Lanil Yu. So, yeah, I mean, most of the guys that I've worked with on a long-term basis are friends of mine. So, we get to talking, and I'm working with Tony Daniel right now on a book, and I've known Tony for 25 years. So,
sure. I like that too. Like these are all artists that I absolutely love, and I absolutely love your work on them. Like it's so much fun to see something where when you approach a book, and how does it work for you today? How do you get pages? Is it physical pages, right? Are you getting actual pencils? Are you getting blue line?
It depends. Like
I had a conversation with Phil Hester about how he works, because he works on pencils, and he was doing something where he wanted to go back to traditional, where he would send the pencils and do that, but it wasn't able to do it. So that what they ended up doing is he pencils it, scans it, print out in blue line, and then ink on top of that.
Right.
Is that something you do regularly?
There's a million ways to skin a cat, as they say. Currently, I'm doing a book with Tony Daniel, and he's old as I am, so he wants to send the pencils via FedEx, and I sit there and get the boards and ink them on the boards.
Right.
I was doing a book called The High Republic, Star Wars thing, where the penciler is in Indonesia, and there's no way to hopefully get the pages from Indonesia in any kind of time to make the deadline. So that had to be all, via blue line, like where you get the scan and you convert it into blue lines and you ink that. At the beginning of the book, he was drawing that on paper, but it was a thing for Lucasfilm, and there were so many corrections and revisions that Lucasfilm wanted him to do that he basically just started drawing it all digitally, and then it would send me the digital file. So there were no pencils; it's all inks. And then there's other ones like Aletha Martinez, who I inked on Nubia, where she kind of draws it like on 8.5 by 11 paper. and it's kind of sometimes with Post-it notes, really, and kind of pieces it together, puts it in Photoshop, makes a collage out of it, and then sends me that. So there's a million different ways to do it these days. So you take what you get. The art collector in me prefers it paper, pencils, and inks, and most collectors prefer it that way. But it's just the way it is now, because also, like, some companies aren't that, they're kind of cheap about it, and shipping is expensive, so they don't want you to ship the original pages because that just ends up accruing to be a lot of money after a while. So, however you do it, however you get them, you just do them, I guess.
When I was at First Comics, we did this book called Shatter, which was the first.
Mike Sains or something?
Mike Sains, yes. Oh, very gifted airbrush artist. And he saw that original 128K memory Macintosh computer, the original one, and said, "This is a brush."
Mm-hmm.
And he said that to me. And I said, "Wow, prove it." And a couple days later, he came in with like 3-4 pages worth of storytelling. Not much, not a story, but storytelling. And I said, "Wow, we might be able to make this work." This was 72 dots per inch, well before the laser writer came, well before 300 dots per inch. And it worked. Peter Gillis wrote the scripts, and the book was a huge success in the beginning. It was
I have an issue in the basement. Yeah,
I think I have 2 or 3.
The first one was First Comics best-selling comic book by far. It was on the cover of every newspaper in America, just about, and it was thrilling. But my response, being a sarcastic asshole, was, "How are you going to live on the original art market?"
It's a true point.
It doesn't. Oh, at the time, it was a critical point, because everybody asked that. Within days, everybody asked that. And we went to a convention in Vancouver, British Columbia. Actually, it was in Victoria, British Columbia. Beautiful city. Mike Grell and I and Dick Giordano and Mike Sains. And Mike brought his printer with him, which surprised the airlines. And
what was the size of a printer back then?
It was dot matrix printer, and it was as big as a Buick.
Yeah, that's how I imagine.
yeah. And people were lined up around the block getting Mike to print out and sign pages. The same page over and over again. I forget what he charged. I don't know, $10, something like that. I mean, it was cheap, but...
Well, it was $10 in 1985.
That's $75 now or something.
Yeah. Well, yes, but you've seen what original art goes for today.
Yeah.
So,
I mean, a lot of the guys that I speak to, the younger up-and-coming guys that do everything all digitally, like the pencils, inks, and colors digitally, it's like, I don't know. I make 30% of my income selling original artwork, probably.
Right.
I mean, I don't
know why you would not do at least the covers or some of the splash pages traditionally to sell them, but what do I know?
I mean, I am looking at your original art right now. It's right hanging up on the wall.
Yeah. I have portfolios of it right behind me, so I just got a Salva Summer page the other day, so I'm happy about it.
There are artists working today who grew up with computers and therefore
they don't know
see the world that way. And if you explain to them how Zipatone worked or Ben-Day dots worked, they will look at you like you had 3 heads.
Well, I disagree with the Zipatone. Unfortunately, that's coming back, which I don't like at all.
It is
big time. I hate it. So many nights trying to find that one little piece to fit in that spot, and I hate it.
That's true. But if Dual Shade makes a comeback,
no, that's not coming. Well, the chemicals will probably cause cancer.
Oh yeah, all good ones too.
Yeah,
I came to terms with that a long time ago.
I mean, you were the editor of Chaikin's American Flag, right? So you must have it. You're going to get cancer in your fingers, probably touching the pages.
Yes. I loved the stuff, and I think to this very day, Howard still has a small stack of Do a Shade.
Mm.
I know
But
he
do
did
you
a
have
few
the
years ago.
chemicals? That's the thing.
Well,
'Cause who
I
would even
couldn't
make that
say.
now?
No, I can't imagine. Well, I don't know. I don't know what the chemicals were. I mean, it could have been kerosene for all I know.
Probably.
I have a question about the process or the art, the
Mhm.
art of drawing. Do you've drawn thousands of pages of comics? Is there and most of them are a lot. I would say vast majority of them superhero comics. Is there
Yep.
a part of the human body that you just like drawing? Like when you get to like, oh, I got to get to the feet, or I don't like the hands. I mean, one of the things when I love watching people ink, I love, there a few during the pandemic. I think Sandra Hope was doing a bunch of videos, and it was great watching her do that stuff. Is there something that is there part of the human body that you hate, or is it part of the human body you love drawing?
Basically, I just try to get the hands and the faces as close to what the penciler wants, because after that, they're happy, and then they leave you alone.
The hands and the
Because
faces
that's the
are the
one they
thing.
usually spend the most time trying to emote or to act with, really. So once you get that down, everything kind of easy after that, really.
As an editor, I would work with young, new inkers, and I would have them focus on various parts of the body where they were weak. And every male inker, just about, had no idea what a woman's ankle looked like. They had never seen a woman's ankle.
That says more about the people that were working for you, I think, than anything else.
I thought of that.
Mhm.
I thought of that. How come I know what women's ankles look like and they don't? Well, because they've been locked in a room drawing comics all their lives.
That's the thing.
That's why.
I mean,
Okay,
honestly,
I get
to
that.
get good at it, I mean, you basically have to lock yourself away like a monk for 10 years to get good at it. It doesn't
That's
just come
right.
to you. It's hard.
That's right. And when you get out of that room, damn it, don't tell them about Trump.
Mhm.
So it's hard. I love that you just said that. Why is it hard? Because I want people to understand that there's this amazing part about comics and comic book creators and artists, that there's this brilliant amount of talent that you have, but why is it hard?
You can have all the talent you want to, but it's the application of it, and to be able, I mean, once you get the talent part of it down, you still have to be able to apply it to do it every day over and over and over and over again, even when you don't want to do it over and over again. But it's hard because everybody who does this for a living is a fan of it on some level, and you want to be as good as the people you're a fan of. So
Right.
I can't go out there and try and not be as good as Wally Wood. I'll never be as good as Wally Wood or Terry Austin or whoever, or Kevin Nolan. I won't be as good as them, but you're aspiring to that. So you're always, if you're an artist, you're trying to get better each and every time you go out there and, see if you can achieve that. I mean, it's an elusive goal that you'll never get, but you're always striving for it.
You can get there, but you're not going to realize it.
Right. That's the thing. I mean,
other people
because it's like I'm a huge basketball fan, and LeBron James, I think, is the best basketball player of all time. But he's chasing the ghost of Michael Jordan, and he's never going to get there because people have already blazoned in their mind what Michael Jordan is. He's the best, and no one will ever change that for them. You might have people that are watching LeBron that are young now that'll think he's the best in the future. But the people that lived when Michael Jordan played are going to say that he's the best because it was imprinted on their DNA when they were younger. So you're always chasing the ghost, really.
As a total coincidence in my life, I stopped by Michael Jordan's restaurant to use the bathroom.
At terrific time.
At a point in time, no, this was many years ago.
Oh, the real restaurant in Chicago, you mean? Okay.
Yeah, the real one in Chicago. I'm a Chicago boy. And I went in, and the place was just packed. But I figured, okay, it's packed. Fine. I went to the bathroom, got out, and there was Michael Jordan announcing to the world that he was quitting the Chicago White Sox and going back to the Bulls, which were
a big cheer broke out, I'm sure.
And well, I can't. There was a reverence. It was a reverent cheer. It's a good point, though. It was really interesting. And today, you have to remind people, well, for like 2 years, he was playing baseball. That's how big his personality was. That's how big his mark was left on basketball.
Right,
So
and
you want
it's almost in a way too that when you're that big a person in whatever field you're in, people forget that he lost way more than he won. I mean, he won
Right.
some championships, but what about the other years? But nobody remembers those. They just remember the glory days.
The year that Babe Ruth broke the record for home runs, he also broke the record for strikeouts.
Yep.
There's a lesson there.
Yeah, well, that lesson has changed. It doesn't work that way in baseball anymore. Nobody cares if it's strikes.
You can strike out as much as you want to in baseball right now.
That gets us back to Jewish shit.
Of course it does. I have another one. I have another one about your career and what you've done. Is there a character you love working on when you get an assignment that's a particular character? Is there one that you're like, I can't wait? I hope that the next assignment's going to be this character.
Yeah, there's a few, but it's weird. Like one of my favorites is Batman. Everybody's favorite is Batman, but I really have like a aversion to buildings. I hate them. I hate them so much because you can fake a car, you can fudge a mountain, you can fudge anything, but a building, it has to look like a building. It has to read as a building. And when you're doing something like Batman in Gotham City or Daredevil or Spider-Man, where the city's a big element of the story, you can't fake it. You gotta do them. And I don't like them. I don't like them in cars, really. But my perfect book would be a Conan book in the desert somewhere, but I never get that. So.
Batman in the desert. There you go.
Yeah,
So
him and Ra's al Ghul, I'll take that all day. But
I was talking about Marshall before, Marshall Rogers.
Yeah, building.
You look at his Batman in particular, anything, but certainly his Batman. If you were looking at it and I were to tell you, that guy was a trained architectural designer.
Yep, I believe it.
You would absolutely believe it, and it happens to be true.
Yeah, and certain guys have that architectural bent to their artwork, and certain guys don't. Even inkers, like Terry Austin, has that.
Right.
That feel that he wants to do that with rulers and whatnot and get everything perfect. Whereas like a Joe Rubenstein is more like sloppy or whatever. So,
Right. You look at anybody from the Kniff school and it's like, well, that's not a building. Those are shadows of a building.
Yep. Exactly.
Yep. Does it look like a building to you?
Well, I mean, yes. to my mind in comics, the schism was in the 60s is that you're a Jack Kirby guy or a Neil Adams guy. And you want one of those two ways, and your stuff, like almost like the Rosetta Stone of it, all goes back to those two in American comics. I mean, if you go back further, it goes to Milton Caniff and all those people. But in American superhero comics, I guess those are the two, really. Because everything's sort of based on that.
If you had that choice in the late 1930s when the comic book medium started, you had two choices.
Hal Foster, Milton Caniff.
Well, Hal Foster was and Alex Raymond, the very illustrious
realistic style
school, and then you had Milton Caniff and Noel
Frank Robbins and those types,
and Frank Robbins who followed that. Yes, and I'm a huge Frank Robbins fan.
I have two original Johnny Hazards downstairs. So,
me too.
It's great.
So there you go.
I was bidding on an Invaders page last week, but it was too much for my blood. So.
Wow! That Suicide Note story is going to be fun to tell you.
Yeah.
So, like when you're talking about that, I'm thinking about like George Perez's pencils and what he put Romeo Tangal through, right?
Mm-hmm. So I inked him on 3 pages, never again.
Right. Why is that?
It was Malibu Comics did this book called Ultra Force.
Oh, sure.
I think a few pages of that, and the team was fighting in Miami Beach or whatever. But he drew so many. Like I guess there was a monster coming out of the ocean, so people were running, so like a Godzilla thing. So the monster's coming onto land and going to the buildings, and he's drawing every building in 3-point perspective. It's just no, not for me. And I love his stuff. I love his work, but
of course. but I can see it. That's what I'm saying. Like I always thought it was so much work. Like when
Yeah, I mean,
when
again, I try to put in a full effort on each page a day, to get it done. But sometimes it's like it makes the job not really worth it because got to be pragmatic about it. If it's going to take you 3 days to do a page, but you're getting paid the same thing and it's throwing off the rest of the schedule, it's kind of not worth the effort. I did a job a few years ago with Adam Kubert, who's amazing. It was a Spider-Man Wolverine thing. And for whatever reason, Adam that month got in his brain that he wants to draw the pages at double size. Like,
Oh yeah.
instead of 11 by 17, it's 22 by 28. It was huge. And
He was brought up that way.
Sure. He also had an assistant that was doing like Marshall Rogers level background details. So I'm inking away at it, but it's like these two guys are tag teaming on these pages, and it's killing me because it's taking me 3 days to do a page, and they're not paying me anymore to do it.
Right.
My rate is my rate. So at some point, I had to give up the book. It was like I'm starving here doing this. It's killing me. It looks great, but what's the point, really?
I canceled the book once, not because it was selling poorly. I knew that we could have kept it going at least another 6 issues, but because the writer was losing money on it and starving to death.
Yeah,
it took him as long to. The book was Wasteland. The writer was John Ostrander, my lifelong pal, and it took him as long to write a 8-page story, 9-page story, as it did for him to write a whole issue of Suicide Squad. And he was writing his best stuff ever, and some of the best stuff in comics.
Right.
Quite
But at some point, it's like the passion project or paying the bills. It's like you got to weigh.
And I kept on saying, well, maybe we should do something here so you can eat. And he says, yeah, we should. We never did. So
eating is important.
Well, keeping people alive is important. I have a lot of creative priorities, but keeping the creator alive is on that list.
Should be the prime directive, as they say.
It really is. You ain't got shit without him.
Yeah, exactly.
I can't tell you how many publishers I've worked with who did not understand that.
Right.
And that is so sad. It is so sad.
It's interesting to have you here and talk about this because something that I've talked about with people for a long time, and you mentioned there's not a whole lot of inkers left.
Right.
It's a super valuable profession, but it is changing. The landscape of the way that comics are being made has changed, and I often say that the job of the inker has fallen to the colorist.
Many times, yeah.
Do you think that? And do you?
Well, I can give you my 2-cent theory on how this whole thing started.
I love it.
All right, so I'm 56 this year. I was around when the whole image boom happened in the early 90s, I guess.
Mm-hmm.
One of the most popular guys from that crew of artists was Jim Lee. Jim Lee's great. Jim Lee's spectacular, still spectacular after all these years. Him and Scott Williams are like, bread and butter. It works together, peanut butter and jelly. When the kids saw those books, they assumed Jim Lee was drawing every single line, every single spatter thing, every single like Kirby crackle. They assumed it was all him. It's not. Scott is putting in a hell of a lot of work on that stuff to make it look like that finished product. Like I said before, it's like two artists that go together and make almost like a third better artist.
Mm-hmm.
So when all the kids that were influenced by that stuff, as they would be, saw it, they started penciling like that. It's like, I have to draw every little dash and dot and this, that, and the other that Jim is doing, that they thought Jim was doing. And it gets to the point where those guys, before that, you had like artists like John Buscema or Sal Buscema or whoever, guys who were able to do multiple books a month because they weren't putting that level of polish and detail onto each page. You'd have some every once in a while, like Dave Stevens or somebody crazy. But for the most part, nobody was putting that level of polish on the book. Some of it's because of the printing wasn't as great, because the printing got better in the 90s and the coloring too. But it ended up, we had a whole generation of artists that really just kind of wanted the inks to look exactly like what they drew. Since they spent 40 hours drawing it, they wanted you to look like You did the same thing. So they wanted you to trace it, really. And that was sort of the beginning of the spiral down for inkers, because before that, to be an inker, you had to be able to be a finisher. You had to be able to take some looser pencils and make them work. And since the pencils weren't asking for that, new guys were coming in not needing to do that. So very few and far between, you'd have guys that could actually take some loose salvage pencils from ROM and make it into something that would look good. And then, that coincided with all the digital stuff being more prevalent now, where you can kind of fake the inking, in Photoshop or whatever. And it also combined with the companies just being cheap in general and not wanting to pay an inker if they don't have to. So They basically lowered the rates for everybody. The inkers, the pencils just inking themselves now, or just darken the pencils themselves. So it is kind of a dying art form in that respect, where when I started, every book had an inker. There's not that many of them now. I mean, we're like the band on the Titanic. We're like not quite down in the water yet, but we're going, So,
I hope that's not true, but I agree with you at 100%. Sadly, I just hope it's not true.
Yeah, I mean,
however,
there's going to be certain people that are still going to want it done this way, but there's just less people to do them now.
That's right. I mean, there are people who still want a letter on the letter on the boards, which I approve of. But
only a few of those people.
There are only a few people.
That's a handful of those people
who will do that anymore. 10 years ago, 20 years ago, it was more prevalent.
The thing is, I don't even know if you could find people that the newer generation wouldn't know how to do them.
That's right.
Anymore.
That's
the skill's
absolutely
sort of been lost.
But in the late 30s, early 40s, as we got into World War II, pencilers started to get, artists started to get too busy to be able to pencil and ink.
Mm-hmm.
If you're doing Superman and all of a sudden there's 100 pages a month of Superman material, how are you going to do that?
And getting paid like $7 a page too. We want to get it out.
Yeah. That may be my column next week or in 2 weeks for Pop Culture Squad. I have something to say about that. But it was thought of as a step backwards. Pencilers should be inking their own pencils.
Mm-hmm.
And it was somehow like a sad day when you had to give that up. I understand why many artists felt that way at the time, but it was a good day for the medium because you had more options and you had more potential. There are different styles, just as you would put one inker on a book over a penciler, but not that same inker on that same penciler on a different book. It's wonderful. We have more choices. So
I agree.
I'm always in favor of that.
I mean, the perfect example back in the day is like if you look at the Uncanny X-Men that Terry Austin inked over Byrne, and then you look at Captain America that Rubenstein inked over Byrne. Two completely different approaches, but they both work.
Right. Absolutely right.
Strangely, both of them worked for Neil, but they both went in completely different ways. Where Terry's stuff was very linear and super technical and precise, and Joe's stuff is more slapping the ink on a paper. But they both work.
Yeah. I mean, and that's what counts.
Yeah.
What counts is the end result.
And I think that has been kind of lost with the newer stuff that comes out now. I mean, I don't want to sound like the old man, but a lot of the stuff is so like Photoshop smooth that you miss a lot of the different styles that we had back in the 70s and 80s or whatever. On the mainstream books. I mean, if you go to like the independent books, you get everything. But I'm saying like the Marvel and DC type of stuff.
Right.
I feel like
you are an old man, but I'm a much older and I totally am on your side on that. Totally.
I think one of the things that also, I mean, I love you. I love that perspective on that. One of the things that, as you start to learn about how comics are made, when you get that concept, you're like, oh, well, the guy, they're the concept of an embellisher or a finisher. And you're like, oh, well, the backgrounds are, you kind of left to the inker. The inker will like really finish in the background. So just kind of like, so that's a skill and stuff. And I think that particularly, because there's no inking, there's no, you have pencilers who are inking themselves and they're drawing the characters, and it's just in a room and let the colorist, fill in.
The colorists do. That's why the colorists make a lot of money these days, because they're doing a lot of the heavy lifting. Like I said, an inker would be like a lighting person or a cinematographer. the colors are taking that job now too in many ways, you know, along with the colors.
That's true.
Because I mean,
however, it's about time that the colorists started to get paid what they're worth.
Sure, absolutely.
Everybody should get paid.
Yeah, well, tell that to all the companies, though.
Yeah, well, that's.
But you know, but it's weird because like I was just flipping through before we started talking an old. It's an Avengers book that John Buscema drew or did the breakdowns over, and Tom Palmer inked. And Tom is throwing everything in the kitchen sink of that book. Whereas if you saw the pencils, it's basically the how to draw comics the Marvel way stuff, just like, you know, really loose, sketchy outlines that John's putting in there. And Tom should have almost gotten paid more than John was, because he's putting way more effort into it. But that's comics.
That may have been the case. He may have gotten paid for
pencils. Maybe.
I'm hoping.
Yeah, because you could tell that
hopeful.
For every half hour John was putting in, he was putting in like 8 hours, you know?
Yeah. I get that. Totally.
What was all right. If you have, I don't want you to talk about what it was, but what was the problem with the job, the most complicated job you ever had, where you're like, this is that you didn't want, it was difficult to do. What was it about that made it difficult?
I wouldn't say that any jobs that I had were just the physical part of it's difficult. I mean, you know, you get more, some guys are more detailed than others, so you have to allocate time. Like Jimmy Chung is way more detailed than like Ed McGuinness, so you have to, you know, allocate time. A lot of it's just like personality type of things behind the scenes, or not getting along. Like, I'll just say, okay, so
all right,
there was a book I was working on years ago where let me say it, not to say it. All right, so this book I was working on years ago where, for one of the two major companies, and artist and I had done an annual for one of the companies, and at the time, Marvel and DC were pretty close together. I lived in New York City, so I would just drop off stuff at either place, and sometimes on the same day, I'd drop off at two different places if I was doing stuff for both of them. So the book that we were working on, I brought over to this one company, and they were looking at the pages and loved it because that guy had been there before, but he had left under acrimonious circumstances. But the stuff they were doing together looked really good. So they were like, you know what? We're looking for an artist on this book X. So we're going to hire you on it. You two on it. And we spoke to him about it, and he's into it. But I'm going to let you know right now, everybody he's ever worked with, he got fired. Everyone. He's going to want to get you fired because he's just flighty like that. And whatever he says, we're not going to fire you, but he will try to get you fired. So we finished the book, the annual. We come over there. We start working on the book. And within a month, you try to get me fired. And I don't know about you guys, but usually when your teammate is actively trying to stab you in the back, it tends not to make the best of working conditions, you know? So
usually.
And yeah, but I'm petty and spiteful, so I stayed on the book. And we were on the book for like 2 years, and for 2 years it was basically the same thing. He was trying to get rid of me. So it's like, I don't know if I did my best work on it because again, you're not, why would you, you know? But other than your own professionalism. So I tried to do that. But yeah, it's stuff like that is more, you know, annoying than the actual work itself. The work itself is the work itself, you know. But yeah, so 2 years of that was fun.
One of my favorite stories. Are you going to tell the story? Because
I don't know. Go ahead. You go.
One of my favorite stories about, thankfully this didn't happen to you, but I do know a great story about, and Mike knows it better, about a penciler who ended up finally getting rid of the inker that he didn't want.
Mm-hmm.
And we've already mentioned him tonight. So,
yeah, but the thing is, though, I mean, I don't want to say it this way, but sometimes I think the pencilers may not really know what looks best over them.
Well, I mean,
because you're kind of in your head when you're drawing it. You have your vision of how it should look, and it might be perfectly valid the way you think it looks, but that doesn't make it the most popular way of doing it. Like John Buscema, a spectacular artist. John Buscema would have preferred to ink everything he did himself. I don't know if John Buscema would be as popular if he inked his own stuff. I think a Tom Palmer or a Klaus Janson or somebody really bought out more of his stuff than he would have on his own. You know?
I think that's true of Jack as well.
Yeah, exactly.
Absolutely true of
but
Jack.
in the
Although when his
penciler's
wife inked them, it was nice.
in penciler's mind, this is the way it should be. But is it? You know?
Right. That's right. I agree. Absolutely.
What is your
Absolutely.
opinion of Akala on Buscema?
I think for the Savage Sword of Conan stuff, it was unbelievable. There's
They hated each. They
I
hated.
know.
They
But
both
again,
hated the other one.
there it is. I mean, there's a story. I forget the name of the story where it's a splash page where Conan's in front of this huge mountain that Alcala went absolutely crazy on, rendering all over. John would never do that. I've seen John's ends. He would just kind of like block it in and call it in, keep it moving. But in a black and white magazine that doesn't have color, having that extra added level of detail makes you really stare at the page more, you know, because if it doesn't have color, you have to, it's sort of like Citizen Kane. You have to like make it dramatic in black and white for it to really stick out, you know.
But we can do that.
Yeah.
It doesn't happen as often as it should because we don't do black and white comics.
No.
That's a whole art form.
Yeah, missing
in and
one
of
actually.
itself. And yes, and Alcala, Alfredo was as good as it got because he was trained in doing black and white as well as color. He knew his stuff. He was a sort of a volatile guy from time to time, and I understand why, because he was doing stuff that the penciler sometimes didn't like because the penciler didn't show up to do the job.
Right. I find a lot of times when like I know a guy who when he started out, he's not in comics anymore, he's moved out, he's doing like animation or whatever. When he started out, he got lucky enough to get Kevin Nolan to ink him on a job, one of his first jobs. And he hated it. I went over to him at a convention, he was showing me this stuff. I was like, I hate what he's doing. It looks I'm like, there's no way that this will look better than what you would do on your own. It's impossible. It's Kevin Nolan. It looks way better. I'm telling him this, and he's like, no, but it's not what I wanted. Well, it's like, but that's the thing. It's like, it's what you wanted or what the editor wants that's selling the book. You know, that's the thing. It's like he put Kevin Nolan on him because he wants the book to look in that polished professional manner so it could get published and sold, you know? So it's like, there's an art of it and there's a business of it, you know?
I am a firm believer in the having collaborators who will help you, who will aid you, who will make your stuff better, and always having people like that as part of the process.
Right.
I have been writing all my life, literally since I was 15, which was back when dinosaurs ruled the earth, and I always wanted an editor. When I started writing for Pop Culture Squad, Bob was my editor. Bob still is my editor. Now that might have been kind of intimidating. This guy who's been editing and writing since before Bob was born, you know. Yeah, Bob got over it. He's an adult and a mature adult at that, a professional.
Right.
A professional has to understand that everything that's inside his or her head is not necessarily the best way to do it.
Right. It's not like the God with the tablets and whatnot, you know, the Ten Commandments. It's
That's
like,
it. That's
just
it.
because you drew it doesn't make it perfect. You know, just because you wrote it or thought of it doesn't make it. Another set of eyes is always helpful.
Absolutely. Most important thing in all the communications arts, every one of them.
What are you working on right now?
I just finished a Batman arc with Tony Daniel, and Jeremy Adams is the writer. I have no idea when it's coming out. Actually, I think it was going to be slated in after the Jim Lee storyline ended, but that's running late, and they're restarting the new thing with Matt Fraction and Jorge Jimenez. Yeah. So I don't know when it's coming out. It might end up being an inventory story. It might end up coming out as a one shot. I don't know. And then I'm working with Tony on some stuff at Marvel now too. So which has not been announced, but will be soon, I think. Hopefully.
That's fantastic. That's good stuff.
And then to create our own thing that we're doing called The Magical. Let's move with a friend of mine, Todd Harris, who I guess did not make it tonight. So yeah, that's a creator own thing we've been working on since pre-COVID days. You know, Todd is
You've been talking about that. We've chatted little bits about that. Tell us what that is about. You know, and when you guys are ready to really kick it into full gear, I want you guys back and we'll talk about it again. But what is it you're working on with that? Now, how is that process for you?
Yeah, so Todd's a guy I met at San Diego Comic-Con maybe 8-9 years ago, and I would run into him every year. And I didn't know at the beginning what he did for life. I just he was a fan, but his buddy ratted him out and said that, oh, my friend's a great storyboard artist. And he wasn't kidding. Todd has done storyboards for every John Wick movie, all the Marvel stuff since Age of Ultron. He's the Black Panther stuff. I don't know if you saw the movie Sinners that came out recently.
Yep.
He did that whole musical sequence in the middle that everybody talks about. He storyboarded all that stuff. He directed this cartoon that's on Disney Plus right now, The Eyes of Wakanda. So in the time I've known him, his career's blown up, you know. And we had this, a friend of mine, Abeta Lovelace, who was my assistant for a while, but now he's like a teacher at the Harlem School of Arts. He came up with this idea for this. What if it was like a Penn and Teller magic act, but one of them actually has real magical powers? So we took that and we spun off of it and we both like history buffs, and we've always been talking about how come there's so many World War II movies, but so few World War I movies. So we're like, okay, let's research that and put it in that era. So basically, we have these two soldiers that meet in World War I, a black guy from America who's one of the Harlem Hellfighters, who's one of the black troops that fought in Europe, you know, because of segregation here. So they went over to Paris and became, you know, huge national heroes because they were fighting for, you know, them, but, you know, they were getting discriminated against over here. And he meets this English guy who comes from a long line of vaudevillians, and they put together a magic act after the war. One of them, like I said, has magical powers, and then you just sort of go with that, you know. So we've been picking away at it since pre-COVID because, like I said, Todd's career has gone crazy, and I've seen his house, and he has bills to pay. So to create our own thing, so we're just picking away at it in our spare time, and finally we've gotten enough of it to sort of do something with it now.
You know that Penn Jillette is a huge comics fan.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
And sooner or later, you're going to get the book done, and you're going to have a nice big ass paperback or hardcover. And
you might want to write the forward or something, since he's one of the inspirations for it.
That'd be great. You know, it'd be a good team.
I'm a huge fan of their stuff.
That's awesome. That's awesome. Again, I'm looking forward to that. When you want to get Todd to come on and talk to us, we're very willing. And
he could talk for an hour about just the stuff the stuff he's done in Hollywood is amazing. Just over the last 8 years.
I mean, I'm aware. I was prepared for him to be here, and so he had an equally impressive montage. But we will get him back on, and we'll get you on. And where are you going to be?
You kept the montage. You kept the montage.
Oh yeah,
got to send me the montage so I can have it for myself.
You have. Where are you going to be? Where people want to come and see you and buy art from you and stuff like that?
It's 2 more conventions this year and 2 big ones: New York Comic Con and Baltimore Comic Con. My favorite show.
Back-to-back weekends. It's going to be hell.
It's going to be horrible. It's going to be horrible. Because when you go to one of these shows, you kind of need a vacation after it, but the next week's another one. So there's no vacation to be had. And it's one of the reasons I don't even do the San Diego Comic-Con much anymore, because it's such a logistical and just tiring nightmare to do it every year, especially when you're flying from the East Coast out there, because you need like a week off after. You know, New York's just as bad, but at least I can go to my bed. You know, I live close enough.
San Diego is draining under the best of circumstances, but like Sherry just said, I'm looking forward to seeing you in Baltimore. Very much so.
It'd be nice to meet you in person.
And also, I have that.
Well, I need the story now too. Yes.
All right, Mark. Thanks so much for being here. This was great. I really enjoyed this conversation.
Hopefully, I made some sense. I wasn't babbling on.
No, it was great. It was perfect. It was exactly what I wanted. I've been wanting to do this for years, and I really appreciate you doing it.
Thanks for having me.
Great sharing the Ethernet with you, my friend.
All right.
Thank you.
Talk later. Bye-bye.
All right.
All right. Bye-bye. That was fun.
That was a lot of fun. That's what comics is about. That is Mark is a true comics professional and creator, and he understands how this business works, how comics get made, and what it means. And super talented and just wonderful. That was a great conversation.
Well, if people who have been watching the SquadCast for any length of time haven't already figured this out, I'd be surprised. But at least 50% of what it takes to produce great comics is enthusiasm.
Sure.
You know, and so many of our guests show that so freely. And that's wonderful.
I agree with you 100%. Yeah. It is it's interesting, and you love to see that about people, that they are they love their job, and they love it, it is job, as Mark was alluding to at points, you got to get the job done because you want to get paid, and that's how you put food on the table and you pay your bills. But it's a medium where it is a calling. And I mentioned that earlier on, when to work in comics is not something that you arbitrarily choose, like, oh, I'm gonna go do that thing, unless it's inside of you, it's in your soul. And one of the things about it, and as I say often, is that if it's done right, it will move your soul to consume that medium.
Yes. Just about everybody I've ever met who's come into the comic book field since the end of World War II, and I wasn't born for another 5 years after that, got into comics because they loved the medium. They enjoyed the medium. They wanted to work in that medium. Their predecessors, the very first generation of comic book writers and artists, felt the same way, but they felt that about comic strips. Some of the artists felt that about illustration. For whatever reason, they couldn't get the work, during the Depression, they could get the work at the comic book publishers. So what the hell? And then they became great.
Yep.
And that's why we're here.
Yeah. So thanks everybody for being here. We will have a show next week. Stay tuned to where you find out about this, and you'll find out what we're going to do. We don't have a guest to announce just yet, but it's very possible we will have a guest. If not, you'll just get Mike and I, and we'll dive into some cool stuff. We have some guests lined up for the rest of the summer / early fall. It's going to be a great lineup of people. We're going to talk about some interesting things. I'm going to be going. My weekends are getting very busy between what I do not related to Pop Culture Squad, but also related to Pop Culture Squad, because we are going to be going to SPX in a few weeks. So we will get some information from that. Stay tuned to us, because we'll probably do some on the scenes videos and interviews and stuff like that. So we're going to keep doing this. It's fun. It's we hope that you enjoy it. And
that's right, folks. You can't stop us.
That's the best part about the internet. You can we're just going to keep doing it. We don't have to worry about paper and stuff.
Well, as long as this business, this field, this art form continues to expand, we will have an infinite number of people to talk with and things to talk about. And that's cool. It's cool to see it evolve.
Yep.
Join us in that quest, folks. Next week, it's the day after Labor Day, so Lord knows what's going to happen. But whatever it is, we'll be damn goofy about it.
Sounds good. I will see you next Goofy Tuesday.
All right. Take it easy, folks.
Thanks, everybody.
This has been a production of the Pop Culture Squad Network. PopCultureSquad.com. How do you nerd?